Hey everybody, today's lesson is on the coordinate plane. As you can see in front of you here, the coordinate plane is this graph-like thing, and it's kind of a way that we use this to plot points and find specific locations. What we're going to start with today is just kind of going over the different parts of the coordinate plane. We'll have some different labels and definitions and things like that, just knowing the names of the different parts of the planes, such as quadrants and axes and things like that. Then we're going to move on to actually plotting points onto this, having an ordered pair, which are directions to where a specific location is. So that's what we're going to go through today. Okay, so here's our coordinate plane, just like we had on page 1. What I want to do first is just go through and label the different parts, because these are things that we need to know. So first of all, you see these two black lines, one that's going left and right here, this one right here that's going left and right, and then we also have the one that's going up and down here like this. So those things have names. So the one that's going horizontally or left to right, this one here is what we call our, it's what we call our x-axis. Okay, the x-axis is just like our number line. All right, it goes left and right, where what we start with is right here in the center is our 0. Okay, and if it's just like a number line, that means now each line that goes to the right are going to be positives. Okay, so that's 1, this line is 2, this line is 3, this line is 4, this line is 5, and so on and so forth, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Notice one thing that I point out here is when I write my numbers on this, so I know which line is, I'm actually using the grid lines. What I'm not doing, and I see some people do this, is some people, when they label these, they want to put the number 1 in the box, like that's the first box. We're not going inside the box at all, all right? The numbers that we label it by are always on the grid lines. So please use the grid lines, okay? So if positives go to the right here, well then that means that negatives go to the left, all right? So we have -1 and -2, -3, -4, and -5. Okay, and again, I'm using the grid lines to label those things. Okay, so that's our x-axis, anything that's going left and right. The one that's going up and down here, this is then what we call our y-axis. Okay, a y-axis is kind of like a thermometer. Again, we already have 0 labeled in the center there, but then just like a thermometer, temperatures that are above 0, so if we're going up, are going to be positive numbers. So that line's going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Going down then, or below 0, is going to be our negatives. -1, oh, that looks bad, let's redo that. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay, so again, positives go up, negatives go down, and that's how once we get to ordered pairs on the next page, we're going to use those numbers as kind of like a roadmap to get to a specific location on the coordinate plane. So our x-axis goes left and right, our y-axis goes up and down. I guess the last thing I'd mention is notice I went to 5 in every direction, all right? Really what has to happen here is if I'm looking at the x-axis, this one here, all right, if I went to 5 and 5 to the right, if I labeled 5 to the right, then I want to label 5 to the left, so to -5. But that has to be consistent going left and right. If I went 10 to the right, then I would want to go to -10 to the left, okay? And then the y-axis has to be consistent with itself. So let's say I went up to 7 on the y-axis, then I would want to go down to -7 on the y-axis. The x-axis and the y-axis can actually be different. So if I went out to 10 in each direction on the x-axis, but I wanted to go out to 20 in up and down on the y-axis, that's okay. But the x-axis has to be consistent to itself. The y-axis has to be consistent to itself. Okay, other parts. So now that we have our axes, okay, you can see where the x-axis and the y-axis cross here, which is actually what we call the origin. And I'm going to have a little line here. I'm going to point right there, the origin, right at the starting point. That is what we call the origin, because that's where everything's going to originate from. When we start putting our points on here, we always start right there, and that is actually going to be the point 0, 0, is how we say it. That's called the origin because that's the starting point. It's right where the x and the y-axis cross each other. But now when they cross each other, you can see it kind of divides our grid here, our coordinate plane, up into 4 different sections. Well, those 4 different sections are what we call quadrants. All right, so we're going to go ahead and label those here. I'll stick with the orange. Our quadrants, there are 4 of them, starting with this upper right-hand section, which is what we call quadrant number 1. And when we write the number 1, we use Roman numerals. And you're going to see for all 4 of these, there are 4 sections, so we're going to have 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're all going to be used Roman numerals. I have no idea why that they're used as Roman numerals. They just are. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to be consistent with the way that it's always been. Now, what happens is the quadrant is in the upper right. Now, like most things go clockwise, but these are one of the things that don't. Quadrants are actually going to go this way in a counterclockwise fashion. All right? So if I just start moving the way around then, if quadrant 1 is up in the upper right, then we are going to have quadrant 2, which is in the upper left-hand side. And if we keep moving counterclockwise, that puts quadrant 3 down here on the lower left-hand side. And finally, our last one here is going to be quadrant 4. Remember, the Roman numeral for 4 is we have the V, which is a 5, and then the I comes before it because it's 1 before 5, which is 4, quadrant 4. So those are the different parts of the coordinate plane that we should know. We have our x-axis, our y-axis. We have the 4 quadrants, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. And then finally the point 0, 0, which is our origin, because that's where the beginning is going to be. That's what origin means, the beginning of something, where something originates from. Okay, let's go ahead and do some of these. All right, so what we're doing here is talking about ordered pairs. Ordered pairs is a grouping of numbers, actually 2 numbers, so something like this, 3, comma, -2. These 2 numbers are always separated by a comma, and they're always put in parentheses here. Now, I'm going to be very picky that you write it correctly, that these 2 numbers, that you have the comma between them, and that you always show the parentheses. All right? And what an ordered pair is are these 2 numbers that are grouped together. And these are actually like map directions. They're telling you where to go on the coordinate plane over here. It's going to define a specific location on our map, on our coordinate plane. Okay? So we have 1 point, which consists of the 2 numbers here. Now, we're going to just label a couple of these. The first number here is what we call our x coordinate. Okay? It is our x coordinate. So I can even put an x above it there. Okay? The second number is going to be our y coordinate. So again, I'm going to write this down. That is our y coordinate. We have an x and a y coordinate because we have an x and a y axis. So what these 2 numbers are telling us are, the x coordinates tell us where do we go on this x axis, and then when we switch to the y, it's going to tell us where do we go on the y axis. So those are the 2 things that we're looking to go. These are directions. If you forget which one comes first, the x and y, it's just like the alphabet. That's why they do that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. All right, so X comes before Y, just like in the alphabet. Okay, here's how it's done. So when we look at this, since the X coordinate is first, okay, the X coordinate is always the one we start with, and the X coordinate, because our X axis goes left and right here, well, that's what the X coordinate's going to do. It's going to tell us to go, actually I want to get rid of this line. It's going to tell us to go either left or right on the x-axis. Now, you got to remember, the x-axis is just like a number line. So we know that positive numbers go to the right, negative numbers go to the left. So since our x is a positive 3 here, what we're going to do is we always start at the origin. Remember, this is right here. That's the origin. And it's telling me to go 3 to the right. So if I count over here, 1, 2, 3, that gets me to this line right here. Okay? I'm going to do that one more time. It's going to get me to this line right here, counting 3 over. Okay, then, once I get to that third line, then I start to look at the y-coordinate, which is a -2. Now, from the spot where I'm already at, the y-axis then is either going to tell me, should I go up from this point or should I go down from this point? All right. Well, again, the y-coordinate or the y-axis is just like a thermometer. Positive numbers go up, negative numbers go down. This is a -2, so from this spot that tells me to go down 2, and that's where we put our point. Let me get that a little better for you. That's where we put our point, right there. Okay? So finally, if I take away all my arrows, what ends up happening is move over 3, go down 2, and you end up getting your point right there. Okay? And that's how you do an ordered pair. Okay, here's 3 for you guys to try. Point A, point B, point C. Okay, I want you guys to pause the video, put those 3 points on the coordinate system. Go ahead, pause the video, give it a try. Okay, and you're back. So I'm going to start off here with part A, which is telling me this point here. The A that's in front here is just what we're going to call the point. It really doesn't mean anything to that. What I care about are the 2 numbers, that the 3 is my x-coordinate and that the -4 is my y-coordinate. So that tells me to go 3 to the right, and then since it's a -4 for the y-coordinate, that's telling me to go 4 down, and that's where I'm going to put my point. Okay, so 3 to the right, I go 4 down, I can put my point right there, and we're going to label that point A, because that's what it's called, point A. Let's move on to point B now. Okay, so point B is a -2 for the x-coordinate, so that tells me from the origin I go to -2, and then the y-coordinate here is a -1, so that's telling me just to go down 1 here, so not moving very far, and that's where I'm going to put my point, right at that location. Okay, so -2, -1, and that is going to be called point B. Remember, I don't care where I put the letter B. What I'm locating is where the dot goes, where the point goes. That's the important part. Okay, and then finally here, C is 0, 4. So now here's almost a little tricky part. If my x-coordinate is 0, okay, well, I'm already at 0 on the x-coordinate. It's just telling me I don't go to the right and I don't go to the left. The x-coordinate is saying stay at 0. And then for the y is saying go up to 4. So I just go straight up to 4, and that's where I'm going to put my point there. So we do that. Put my point there, and that is going to be point C, and that's how you do ordered pairs. Okay? Question 2. Okay, this is kind of just the reverse. So now I have 4 points on here already. What I want you guys to do is to take these 4 points, which is A, and what you're going to do is you're going to put the coordinates in parentheses. B is a blue one here, and you're going to, again, put those ordered pairs in parentheses, like so. So each one is going in parentheses, and all you're going to do is fill in the correct number. So go ahead, pause the video, and go ahead and write those ordered pairs down. Okay, and we're back here. So again, we're going to do this, do an ordered pair. So if I start with point A here, okay, that means I start at the origin. I'm going to move to the right 5 on the x-coordinate. Remember, we're always doing the x first here. So we had to go 5 to the right on the x-coordinate, and then we're going to go up 1. Okay, so it becomes 5, 1 is that ordered pair. For B, okay, B is the blue here. To get to the B, again, we have to always go on the x-axis first. So I'm going to -2 because we went to the left. Then I have to go down to -4, so the y-coordinate is -4 is my ordered pair. For my C, okay, this is kind of like the one on the previous page. It's saying don't go right and left, but what we're going to do is just go up to 3. So it's 0 on the x-coordinate, but then the y-coordinate says go up 3, so the point is 0, 3. The last one, hopefully we can all get, D is right on the origin. It didn't move at all, so that's a 0 on the x-coordinate and also a 0 on the y-coordinate. Okay, last thing I want to talk about here is this last part of the directions. Then give its location. Okay, we have the 4 ordered pairs. Now we have to give the location here. So for part A, really it's just saying which quadrant is it located in. Okay, so for part A, since I know this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, Quadrant 3 is down here, and finally quadrant 4. We're just simply saying where are they located. So part A here is going to be quadrant 1. Make sure you use the Roman numerals. Okay, so that's one answer. Part B, since B is down in the lower left, that looks like quadrant 3, so I'm going to write that down. Quadrant 3, that is an answer, the ordered pair and the location. C, now this is where it gets a little trickier, because C, it kind of looks like it's in quadrant 1, kind of looks like it's in quadrant 2, maybe it's in both of them. But really what happens is, because it's right on the line, because it's right on the y-axis, we simply say that. It is located on the axis. It's located on the y-axis. Okay? And then D, well, that's on the x-axis and the y-axis. That is what we just call, this one is located at the origin. It is the origin. Okay, so when it says give the ordered pair, then give its location, that's what we're doing. You give the ordered pair, and you're describing, well, where is it on the coordinate plane. That's our lesson for today.